I got a hand to Defiant development. They're giving us the keys. Really helped bring a big sense of unity. Yeah, this is Hand of Fate 2 by Defiant Development. Developed on Unity. Pick it up for around 30 of your wet local stinky currencies. What is it? A new hero rises to challenge the dealer. Oh, I had a different image there. And Hand of Fate 2. Master a living board game of infinitely replayable quests. Unlock new cards. Build your adventure. Then defeat your foes in brutal real-time combat. Draw your cards, play your hands, and discover your fate. As I said before, this and this is the ChairQAsition. It's where we take a look at some games, play them a little bit, talk about them, maybe give them some QA that they were not given initially, and maybe throw some chairs at them. Speaking of chairs, 1 chair means that it's garbage, 2 chairs means that it's meh, 3 chairs means that it's pretty good, 4 chairs means that it's awesome. And we got our categories, Oh Doom, mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So we do this in a bit of a roundtable where we all talk about our experience with the game. So let's break it down. Ven, how to make with the working?
Well, over here, I'm running it on the Ubuntu 1710 Ryzen 1700 Short Bus Edition with an old crusty 980. No issues whatsoever. I've actually experienced zero fuckery, and that's quite a rarity these days in the land of Unity. It's getting better. It's getting better, and I like games like this, games like Hollow Knight, that show competent developers can make Unity work. Unity's not necessarily bad out of the box by itself. It is, I think, to its fault, just a little too easy to use. So, at 1080p, everything on 11, averaging about 80 to 90 FERPs on this business with the old 980. No complaints there. UHD at 2160p, everything runs roughly 30, give or take 1 or 2. Nothing to complain about, and that, again, that's with everything maxed out, man.
Yeah, I was playing this on the aging Fedora 25 on the 760-700 HQ and the 960M, and I mean it's an anemic little video card, and it has to go through Prime, so there's going to be a performance hit. But I was averaging, I didn't see it drop below like 45 frames a second on medium, which is good. So I'm relatively impressed with that. No real issues or slowdowns. I did run into one issue where apparently I hit the magic key combination on the DualShock controller that tried to bring up one of the X window hotkeys.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a fault of the games. And to its credit, it paused the game and let me unfuck it. And unfortunately, it paused just before I got hit by something, so it gave me that brief sense of hope that I could dodge out of the way. What about?
Yeah, no. Over here, it ran really, really well. It was holding 90 to 100 with the 1600, the Ryzen 5 1600, and the 1080. Absolutely no issues. There was graphical fuckery, but I'll get more into that in the shiny and sounds. The performance itself was fine. Absolutely no issues. When I first started it, I noticed that VSync was on, because apparently some developers still think it's a good idea to default to that. But yeah, it's just the options menu is fairly comprehensive. It's very similar to the first one, but it was also a good thing back then, and it is still a good thing now. So as far as I'm concerned, it gets the full 4 chairs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure no one had any issues here. So 4 chairs for mixed with the working, shiny and sounds. Yeah, it's definitely an improvement over the first one.
Oh hell yeah, man! I would definitely say
it definitely has that sort of Hand of Fate aesthetic. You can customize your dude now. You can be a dude or a lady, or a lady dude or a dude lady. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. The game will back your play whatever you want. And I mean, so there's the addition of like the David Warner ass voice actor, who sounds always like super shitty when he's like, "Oh yeah, you rolled bad on a die, or you picked the wrong card. Oh, you're a fucking idiot for random chance." The rest of the soundtrack is mainly just grunts, and I don't recall if the companions actually talk. That may have just been a sleep deprivation induced hallucination. It's certainly possible.
I got to agree with you, man. Graphically, it absolutely does look next generation compared to the original Hand of Fate. But I think it's very fair to point out that the original looked a bit janky. So, Pedro, am I correct when saying set your expectations accordingly? For those listening on audio, yeah, it's a massive overhaul.
Oh, yeah.
Does it look like a AAA game?
Oh, yeah.
It looks like an A.
No, it doesn't.
Like an A minus?
It looks
A plus?
like a very, very good looking indie game, and I have absolutely no issues with the just how good they made the post processing and all of the advanced graphical effects. Those look really nice. There is one issue that I started to notice because my eyes are very peculiar when it comes to flickering textures, and there is some Z fighting with some of the card textures that causes that very same weird flickering effect.
This is true.
So my eyes were immediately drawn to that. Yeah,
I guess you should point out, I mean, definitely when
my eyes
you
were
look...
immediately drawn to that.
When you look at the map, you hit the X button to get the overlay, you will definitely see that no matter what you're running it on. That's just there. It's something I have to think that they knew was there. And all the areas that, when you're dealing with the dungeon crawling and you're dealing with the card master, the card czar, whatever you want to call them, that looks great. That looks so much better than the original Hand of Fate with some of the most jankiest animation rigging for that poor guy. I mean, he was almost comically laughable. That looks really good now. I mean, I'm digging that aesthetic. The fighting areas, where you're doing the combat, infinitely better.
They look the same.
They got a graphical overhaul.
There's a lot more variety in the places where you can fight, though. The maps are a little different. And I mean, yeah, it looks about as well as you could hope for an indie team. I mean, I'm not expecting, I don't know, some Alien Isolation level graphics, but you know, it's still good.
All right,
just 3 cheers across the board.
3 cheers for that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, Pedro. How about some Control?
Well, controls, I was looking, when I was filling in the show notes, I saw that Ven was complaining about the no camera movement. Yeah, no. There's still no camera movement. All you're getting is that fixed perspective
okay,
when
all right.
you go into combat.
I had to go test this. Because on the Steam controller, which I used, there is technically camera movement by about much to the left and to the right.
No, you might as well not bother. It's mostly a suggestion.
I will have you know that I bothered 3 times.
Well, I never.
It really becomes a thing when you're getting a lot of attacks coming from off screen, and you see like these bits of glow around the screen.
You're just going to eat a shit sandwich if you're at the top of the screen and everybody's at the bottom. You're like, fuck. Now I gotta do roll dodge until I can get them all back in view. That's a legitimate issue, I do believe.
Yep.
Now, one thing that kind of peeved me was the queuing system, because I had noticed this, and I noticed you put this in the notes as well. But it seems like they really don't want you to button mash, and they've done this in such a way where everything has like this wind up animation, and sometimes you can land blocks, and sometimes you can duck out of the way, but it's really inconsistent because you think, no, fuck you, I dodged that, or I blocked that, and they're like, no, you can eat a bag of dicks, and a big old hammer to the face.
You know, to the point,
it's absolutely a thing.
To the point where I would say that it has definitely not registered blocks and rolls.
I think the intended strategy here, though, is they want you to wait into, and I figured this out after like dying for the umpteenth time, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be patient. But if you sort of like wait in the middle of some bad guys, and you wait for them to attack you, and then you hit the parry, then you can get one attack in, and then you just wait again, and makes the fights take forever, but you can reliably land those blocks.
Well,
But you
I'll
have
agree
to
with you
be
with
very
that,
patient.
but
Yep.
the blocks are one thing. I've seen it not register rolls because, as I'll talk about in the fun section, rolls is my primary attack. And I've had it just straight up not register a roll a couple of times to the point where I
Yeah.
plugged the Steam controller in physically and was able to reproduce that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it is. They are using. It's one of the things that, because when you put that in the notes, the controls are on this bus, and I'm like, are they? So I went in and I deliberately started to look for what they were doing with the controls, and even though you're hammering on that button and your character just it isn't doing what you're telling it to, that's because the game actually queues up the actions as you press the buttons. It's not necessarily a bad thing because there are plenty of games that do that. It's just the cutoff point in the queue and which buttons are queued or done instantly, that at certain points it feels rather arbitrary where that cutoff point is. I guess, like Jordan already mentioned, this is very much to prevent button mashing, but it doesn't really work as well as you'd expect.
Yeah, it often ends up just being an exercise in frustration when you're trying to make the smart play and then you just get fucked because
Yeah.
I hit block a little too soon after I hit attack, and it's unfortunate. But I mean, the controls are otherwise relatively tight. There are no real issues. This is just like an issue specifically with the combat system and how it's implemented. The queuing, incidentally, there's also a queue on the menu system. Because if you spam like cook food
Yes.
at the campsite thing, like it'll lock you in there until it goes through every single
Yep.
thing, every single button press.
Which can
So you
be
gotta be
irritating
really-
because you're just like, oh shit, how much food did I? Oh, I bought too much food and I'm still spending and my health's all the way up. God damn it. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all said and done, I think we all agree this gets about a 3 chair for the controls. And let's put a bow on it. We got the chair spectrum for the fun section. So who wants to take the lead?
Pedro?
Okay. Well, like the first time around with the original End of Fate, I like this one, but then again, I kind of already suspected that I would. So no news there. It's for me, it's like they took everything that made the original Hand of Fate what it was, and they expanded on it. There are more mini games. There's a much bigger variety in mechanics, and the deck building aspect, which I guess is the big selling point of this one, because it's not just Arkham combat, and it's got some more things to it. The deck building is kind of the meat of the game. It's how you progress through any of the given adventures, as it were. Now you get more weapon types instead of being just locked to the single-hander and shield. You get like two-handers, you get the dual wields. There's a lot of variety there. You also get a companion, which is a little NPC that goes around and helps you. There's a bigger map variety. One of the adventures, and I think it's the Emperor, that gives you some more open world-ish type of map, where you have just a big board of cards that you could go around in whatever way you choose to. And the combat just feels a lot better. They improved on the combat significantly. It's still not perfect, but they've improved significantly, and every time you take a swing and you hit an enemy,
Well,
you feel like you did.
Again, the biggest strike I have against the combat in this game is the queuing system, because it just fucks you, and it's a thing you can get used to, and I've gotten used to it. I can now reliably block and dodge about 75% of the time, but it's that remaining 25% is still gonna fuck you. And yeah, I really do appreciate the much more comprehensive map types as well. The Emperor was good. The little murder mystery thing was kind of fun that you got to play through. They've added like escort quests. The lovers is really annoying because you get useless, and you have to and it's not just you have to win the fights. You have to keep him alive, and he will keep getting kidnapped. And every time you have to make a detour, and he eats all your food. And oh god, it just doesn't fucking end. The weapon variety I feel isn't as good as I would hope, because really what it does is it just changes up your wind up time. And There are different blocking strategies when it comes to different enemies and whatnot. If like certain enemies basically require you to have a shield if you want to defend yourself, like the musketeers will just fuck you up otherwise. But I feel that they've won from one type of weapon to just three, and that didn't really do all that much for me. Didn't fulfill that sort of hope. The fame mechanic is interesting too, where they give you items that you need to accomplish certain things within map before you can use them.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how I feel about that, just because it's already a crapshoot. What weapons
there are
you're gonna
certain
get.
quests that also use the fame mechanic.
Yeah.
You can only do a certain quest if you have X amount of fame to do it successfully.
Well, there's also issues with like the big ice hammer that becomes less effective the more fame you have. It's like the humble hammer.
Yeah, so I just don't use that one.
That's the humble hammer.
So here's what I'm going to say about this business. The biggest issue for me with this game is the entire combat fighting system. While improved, it is basically nothing more than straight up hack and slash, which for me, that means it's fun for a few minutes, but it doesn't have any depth. Therefore, it becomes a chore. And it especially becomes a chore once you realize that you can roll your ass out of any situation. Roll is your biggest weapon. I can use any fucking weapon and end up, except for the timed missions. Time missions, you might get skull fucked and you got to play with. I don't bother with a shield anymore. I don't care what weapon I have because I can roll out of it, take a hit, roll back, roll spamming. Works 100% of the time. Like, I have no issues. It's like, oh, you got to do a fight. And I'm like, oh, all right. Yeah, all right. Fair enough. It's going to take me 4 or 5 minutes, but I won't get touched. What it needs, the fighting system, I mean, it needs some combos. It needs some type of attack progression and maybe some AI. Maybe you guys notice this, that the AI, a better AI, because the AI right now herds like sheep. When you fuck a little bit, they'll all wave back together and move away from you. Then one guy will run out and I'm like, all right, I'll take that one out now. And I'll hammer him out and then all that. And when it comes down to dodging the bad guys with ranged attacks, again, just roll out of the way. You're done with that. I think they got really close with this because that's the one thing I like about this game. Because let's face it, I don't like this genre. I don't like dungeon crawling. I don't like losing all my shit after I've gotten it. They got really close with this. So damn close with this. But every time I get fucked by the RNG bullshit, I know some people get a raging clue when that happens to them. Like, yeah, I'm going to come back for more. I'm like, fuck this noise.
It's never fun, but at least it creates some variety and it creates a little bit of tension, and I can definitely appreciate that. And it makes it so that you can replay missions and not have the exact same experience each time. The one thing I did like about the improved card mechanic is there's a lot more interesting card synergy that you can do. So with the armor of gluttony and the food ring and whatnot, where you can become like super tanky really, really quickly. And that kind of stuff is interesting to me. They're trying to leverage what subsystems they have to make a more rich gameplay experience.
They did a good job. I'm going to say, like, for a dungeon crawling game, this is really the only way you would ever keep my attention is by throwing in some actual combat. And they didn't go full Arkham on it. Kind of wish they did. But I will say this. I mean, I've played it 3 or 4 hours, which that might as well be 500 when it comes to this type of game, because it is absolutely not my thing. This would be like me saying, I played a turn-based strategy game for 4 hours. It's not my thing. I can't pretend it's my thing. It needs a little work. If they got the combat more up to snuff, I know a lot of people, listen, if you just like the dungeon crawling aspects of this, that shit's solid. All right, 100% on that. But when you're throwing me into the combat, that becomes that repetitive. There's just not to it. You know the guy where you have to hit B to actually break through his skills.
Yeah.
I'm so happy when he shows up.
Have to keep on hitting B.
I'm so happy when he shows up because I'm like, oh, I actually got something to do that's a little challenging. Instead of just
the Bola guys are also really annoying.
Oh, I just roll out of their way, man.
No, when they show up on mass,
that's the point where you just roll spam.
Roll spam. I can almost. I will bet money I can go into almost any encounter and not get touched. Now, I've got it down to the point.
Yeah, no. If you get the roll down, you're basically untouchable. And
once you focus on attacks and you're not worried about blocking, all you're worried about is rolling out of the way. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but for me that just becomes super boring.
Oh, it is super boring. But
at that point, I would rather not play.
I play games to win.
I play games to have fun, and winning is a part of that.
Yeah,
but if
for me,
is too easy, then.
For me, this one isn't about winning because this borrows a lot from the roguelike genre. It's what you'd call a roguelite with real-time-ish combat. So that to me is just an improvement over the whole roguelite genre. It's just better. But it's still not perfect because there's the texture flickering issue, there's the control queue issue, and the combat. As much as they improved it, and they have a lot, it's still not ideal. And I want to see them improve on that.
I would like to see. I would like to see a version that
no issues
like
having
Mad Max
fun with this game.
Mad Max style combat. I think for me, you could have completely sold this to me. And listen, this is armchair development. I understand this, guys, but if you're going to go for version, Hand of Fate 3. Which I absolutely believe you should. Plus, they're going to be adding an endless mode to this. Maybe you could work on this. You need to bring somebody.
They also had it on the first one.
You need to bring somebody from outside because it's like you're doing what you think combat systems should be, but you can't nail it. You're trying. You're getting better, but that. Yeah, Mad Max, the Arkham system, man. That we need something similar to that. Massive improvement over the first one, but that game's got to get stepped up if you're going to get somebody like me. Which, listen, I'm not your target demo. Absolutely not. $29.99. I wouldn't have risked it on this one, but you were kind enough to send it, and I put my time into it. Rather enjoyed it. Just kind of wish the combat was a bit better because that would keep me in the game is what I'm saying. If I had some, something like a progression system, let me unlock some combos and additional moves, things that I can apply. Make those cards more powers. Give the weapons additional powers.
Make this not Dark Souls and force you to roll around everywhere. Yeah. So if we're gonna slap some chair ratings on it, I give it a solid 3 chairs. This is a good attempt. I had fun playing it. What about you guys?
I'll give it 2. I'm not gonna give it 1 because again, you get almost 4 hours or 4 hours out of me, and that's unheard of for Dungeon Crawler. I'll give it 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 4 chairs because I will find a time to play this game because I really like the first one, and this one's just the first one, but better with more variety. So yeah, no, you got me.
All right.
So 4 chairs for me.
So that's 3 chairs for fun, and tally that all up. 3 chairs finally for Hand of Fate 2. That'll wrap up the ChairQAsition. Guys, fix your combat. Maybe take a look at Mad Max for some inspiration. Coming up next, though.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, do you have some final thoughts?
I was going to say, I mean, this is like a weird. I do want to say this is. I was going to say, or just focus. Take out the actual combat section, because some people would argue that you can always avoid combat or minimize it to the point. Some people might really like that because I know some people absolutely see the. Having to do the combat is, I don't want this in my RNG fuck me over game. I just want the card aspect and maybe focus on that.
Maybe Hand of Fate bogus detour where you do like a turn-based thing, Final Fantasy style. Who knows? that could.
Hey man, Hand of Fate go! Come on.
It kind of already is.
I'm trying to think of something nasty to call the turn-based version.
All right, take us out of here.